I do want to say one thing to preface this video. Firstly, I'm recording this at 4:30 AM after staying up all night to script and record this video, so if I sound tired, I'm sorry, it is what it is. I'll give you the brief in one sentence. They are using the brand new Evolved mode to rework every single job in FF14 from the ground up to change their playability, ease of entry, and damage profiles all in one fell swoop. Some people are going to like that. Others are going to hate it. There's a middle ground too, and I think that's kind of where I sit right now. Interested and tentative about the details. It could be really good if they execute in the ways they need to. Today I'll be breaking down all the news we've gotten about the brand new Evolved mode, including full breakdowns of how the 4 reworked jobs they showed operate: Paladin, Bard, Dragoon, and White Mage. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the overall job information though, and how it will make the system function. The new job's main concept is what they said, creating a system that even more players will enjoy for years to come. That is the main thing that led them to the decision to have 2 modes: Reborn mode to keep the current status quo, and Evolved mode to reduce button bloat, change the battle system, and bring the game onwards into the future of FF14. Evolved mode is an entirely new system, which has consolidated actions to reduce the number of button presses, and has branching paths in its rotation. Reborn mode plays the same way the current jobs do, and will exist for players that want that. It will receive new actions next expansion as normal, and you can keep playing it if you wish. You level up, get some new skills and traits on the journey to the new level cap of 110, and the game will play exactly as it is now. But my main takeaway from this is that Evolved mode is very clearly the way the game is supposed to be played going forward. New jobs will only have Evolved mode, and Evolved mode jobs are inherently slightly stronger than the previous Reborn iterations. You can delay change, but it is inevitable eventually. You will eventually be swapping to Evolved, or you will be left in the past. I would have almost preferred if they had just bitten the bullet entirely and forced the shift instead of this odd in-between state, but I do digress. The 3 main features of Evolved mode are to better highlight the characteristics of each individual job, to provide completely different rotations to those that exist in Reborn mode right now, and to reduce hotbar bloat by having fewer unique inputs, making it less confusing for new players than it was before. With that said, they plan to add situational usages to those fewer buttons to ensure that they have more unique use cases. When I heard this, the immediate connection to be made was that they are moving in the direction of choice-driven risk-reward rotations. Yoshida very clearly stated that this is not an easy mode for the job, and that the new Evolved mode jobs had depth of their own as well as difficulty. Evolved mode has different rotations and emphasize player individuality. He compared it to Street Fighter VI's modern and classic control schemes and said it is not like that. Hotbar consolidation does not equal easier rotation, he says. This is important, especially considering it marks the future of job design for those added 8.0 and onwards. It is meant to be a different concept, but not inherently an easier one. You can swap between job modes whenever you like outside of combat. He noted that these are different enough to be considered almost different jobs, stating it's like having 2 Dragoons, for example. Gear and job level are both shared between modes, you just toggle them as you wish. Both are unlocked when you unlock the job, and all content is clearable on both versions of a job. However, he did state, to recap and to make it clear once again, that Evolved mode is stronger than the older Reborn mode. Now, let's look at the 4 jobs they showed, starting with Paladin. The first thing I'm going to do is to list Paladin's consolidated list of actions real quick. They have Arm's Length, Holy Sheltron, Hallowed Ground, Rampart, Sentinel, the Paladin Wings, Provoke, which now has 2 stacks, Divine Veil, Shield Lob, Reprisal, their Gap Closer, Continuation, interestingly, their role action silence, which has been consolidated with the stun to share both effects in a single button, Holy Spirit, Imperator, a basic combo button, and a finisher attack which is currently signified by Rage of Halone. They have reworked a number of actions to change situationally to save on button space. Let's use Provoke as an example. When you provoke an enemy, you'll turn on tank stance and get aggro. However, if you instead use Provoke on a friendly ally, you will instead shirk them, diverting aggro towards them. Similarly, Shield Lob, your ranged action, becomes the stun Shield Bash when you use it in melee range. Paladin's Gap Closer will change into cover when you use it on an ally. Holy Spirit does the same thing with Clemency when you use it on a friendly as well. Secondly, basic combos have been consolidated into a single button. So this one button on Paladin will do their entire 1-2-3 combo, and this seems consistent across the board on all 4 jobs they showed today. Completing a 1-2-3 combo will give access to an OGCD, in this case Expansion, to use your continuation button on, though you can use it anytime in the next 30 seconds freely. Paladin has 2 gauges, Defense and Honor. Both will go up naturally in combat and can maintain 2 stacks, with Defense needing 20 seconds to get a stack, and Honor requiring 40. You'll spend an Honor stack to use Imperator, which, just like in the current iteration of Paladin, will provide you access to your Confitia combo that will make up a lot of both your damage and your disengage. The defense gauge is consumed to use a Holy Sheltron, though this mechanic has a really good little twist. Paladins are incentivized to carefully time their Holy Sheltron uses now, with damage being the reward. Square Enix call them counter actions. If you take damage within 8 seconds of using Holy Sheltron, you will gain an Answer Crest, letting you do a powerful GCD attack using the Rage of Halone button. If you time it even better, aka within 4 seconds instead, you get an even more powerful version of that attack. So, you're constantly trying to figure out how you can use your Holy Sheltrons to take damage at the right time to get procs of counter strikes. There's also a new combo action from Paladin's Wings called Gathering Round, which provides an AoE heal and I would presume something else that we didn't get to see yet. The other actions seem to operate just like their current FF14 iterations. So now, the job is all about timing counterattacks as much as possible, whilst using your Confitia combos carefully for both disengage and self-heal, and the filler combo will make up the intermediary sections. Dragoon was next, the first DPS they showed. I'll start by running through the actions, just like with Paladin. Leg Sweep, Arm's Length, Second Wind, Feint, Jump, of which they have 3 stacks, Sky High, Star Diver, they have their Backflip, Elusive Jump, Continuation, Piercing Talon, and 4 basic GCD buttons that will make up the entire kit from what they showed. Dragoon now has the Dragon's Bane gauge. It goes up to 3 stacks, and you get a stack every 10 seconds whilst in combat. You can spend one of these stacks to use a special GCD action to gain a stack of Sinister, Dexter, or Heaven's Ward. These 3 actions are the other 3 GCDs aside from your basic combo, and they correspond to the 3 positionals: left, right, and back. That's right, Dragoon now splits positionals based on which side, not just the side. So, you basic combo for a little bit, get your gauge, and spend a stack on a positional. Sinister and Dexter will give you Gear Skogul and Nestrond respectively as off-global GCD procs. You can use Sinister and Dexter in any order, but Heaven's Ward has to be the last of the 3 you use. They're blacked out until you've done both. You have to do all 3 positionals, Sinister, Dexter, and Heaven's Ward, before you can repeat one. They get grayed out again otherwise. Doing Heaven's Ward will give you access to a stack of Wormwind Thrust, which replaces your ranged attack. This is like the PvP version. It is ranged, and you can stack it up over time and use it as needed, giving Dragoon far more disengage than before. Jumps also tie into this. Using a jump will allow you to ignore one positional, letting you speed through your rotation rapidly without requiring to worry about boss or fight requirements momentarily. Each jump will also give you a stack of Blood of the Dragon. Once you get 3 stacks of Blood of the Dragon, you can use Stardiver to enter Life of the Dragon. This is a GCD combo that has a faster GCD speed than the rest of your actions, and closely mimics Inner Release from Warrior but with reskinned attacks to those of a Dragoon. At the end of it all, you can use Sky High. This is literally the PvP limit break to preface. You jump into the air, get a 90% damage reduction for a short while, and then you smash back down for a massive hit with a combo that comes off of it. Elusive Jump also seems to give a short movement speed after using it. One thing I noticed, and this is consistent with Bard as well, are that there do not seem to be any auto attacks in this build. Has FF14 moved away from auto attacks permanently, or is this specific to the developer build, or the result of some server-side weirdness? They didn't explicitly mention it, at least. Sky High especially actually opens up some seemingly really interesting avenues for tanks to literally use their party as mitigation, seeing as 90% is akin to a tank using mitigations for a buster, actually even better than that. I wonder what we'll be able to cook up with such unique strengths as these. I also desperately hope that this left-right positional split is Dragoon exclusive, because it makes for a really interesting baseline of a unique job identity when you combine it with jumps. Seeing Dragoon makes me wish that instead of showing one job per role, they instead would show multiple of the same role, so that we could see just how unique their identities and gameplay styles are from one another. Right now, there are a lot of questions that I'd love answered because I can genuinely see promise in this system if they are able to do what they claim to. White Mage was the healer they selected to show off, and kind of in my wheelhouse, and its buttons have been condensed down to these. Let me list them off. At least their current names, some of them will be changed in 8.0 or they'll have combo actions. So, Asuna, Medica 3, Raise, Plenary Indulgence, Tetragrammaton, Aquaveil, Benediction, Cure 2, Swiftcast, Ethereal Shift, Temperance, Liturgy of the Bell, Swiftcast, Glare 3 and 4, and Holy. This job has changed a lot. Firstly, attacking spells on White Mage are now entirely castless. They noted that going forward they want to incentivize players on White Mage to consider the casts of their healing actions and not have to worry about that extra step when it comes to damage. A new gauge, currently known as Sanctity, also exists, with a maximum of 3 stacks. Using a healing GCD will accrue 1 Sanctity stack, and you're able to use an action called Holy Sanctuary when you have stacks, which will gain potency based on how many stacks you have. This is the Glare 4 button that you see. This attack has a cast bar and 2 charges, which have a 30-second cooldown to recharge. It seems that you can use this spell without charges of Sanctity, but I assume that will affect its potency fairly negatively, so you always want to, in best practices, use it when you have stacks. The Lily Gauge also exists, at least according to the dev tools, but you'll notice that there aren't any Afflatus spells, because those Afflatus spells work in a different way now. They wanted to remove the damage penalty from using healing spells and instead bake it into the system in a different way entirely. Now, I do have to preface, first of all, I'm behind if they want to do that, but secondly, wasn't White Mage's thing already that they can use GCD heals without incurring a damage penalty? That's kind of the core of the current Afflatus system. Anyway, sorry, moving on. Aquaveil and Divine Benison have been merged, meaning that the Aquaveil button now provides both shield and mitigation, and White Mages have 2 charges of it now. They'll also be adding an additional movement speed enhancement effect to Temperance, which I suppose we can consider to match Scholar's Expedience. Temperance also has been reduced in duration to 10 seconds. If you press Plenary now, it modifies your next Medica or Cure used sometime in the next 10 seconds into an Afflatus Rapture or Solace, which now, on top of healing, will provide you with regeneration over time effects. It also still maintains its mitigation and heal vamp effects, though Plenary's duration has been reduced to 6 seconds. Pressing Plenary consumes one of your lilies, which regenerate naturally every 20 seconds. This means that now, it costs Gauge to use White Mage's inherent healing over time effects. These shorter effects for mitigation seem to be a fairly consistent change across the board in Evercold when it comes to AoE, prioritizing tight timing. No dot. Interestingly, I think it's clear that White Mage has been intentionally designed to be simpler and easier for new players across the board, freeing up movement limitations, mental stack when it comes to damage, and barriers that could prevent efficient healing. If you want my take as a player, this was the least convincing showing of the day because it really did just seem like an easy mode. Last came Bard. Bard skills were as follows: Peloton, Head Graze, which has the stun and silence merged as a single button, Foot Graze, which interestingly has not been consolidated, Arm's Length, all 3 songs, Pitch Perfect, which acts as a proc action again, Second Wind, Troubadour, Radiant Finale and Radiant Encore, a basic attack, which has a combo, and the new first attack of it is called Starlight Sight. You have your backflip gap closer as usual, and 2 buttons that change depending on which song you have active at the time. Bard now has the Performance Gauge, which has 3 stacks, and you'll get 1 stack every 20 seconds passively for being in combat. You might notice a trend here. Every job gains at least 1 resource passively via Gauge just from fighting. You can spend a stack of the Gauge to use a song, any of the current 3 that are in today's FF14. Each song has a different effect to both your rotation and also to your raid defensive utility. Mage's Ballad provides you AoE regen, Army's Paean will provide you AoE move speed, and Minuet will give you an AoE shield. You can use the songs in any order, but it is forced by the system for you to use all 3 before cycling back to the beginning again. Mage's Ballad gives you access to your damage over time attacks via 2 stacks of Barbed Quiver, which last 30 seconds and will allow you to put up those dots. After you put both up, you get a proc of Heartbreak Shot to use. Army's Paean lasts for 6 seconds and also provides 5 stacks of Melodic Quiver, which is very reminiscent of an inner release burst when you use it. You get an OGCD after every 2 hits within that fast combo, and I think the closest thing that you can compare it to in-game right now is a Reaper in Shroud, just without the Communio cast bar finisher. Minuet lasts for 15 seconds and gives you a 3-hit combo, of which the final attack is a cast bar attack that deals massive damage, and you'll also get an OGCD that gives Hawk's Eye, which is a buff. Predictions right now, for me at least, are that it makes the next attack auto-crit, seeing as the finisher that he used immediately after did crit, but it could also just be a flat damage boost and he got lucky or something like that. After doing all 3 songs, you get access to Radiant Finale, a buff that lets you use Radiant Encore and also an AoE party buff. We don't actually know what that one does yet. Radiant Encore is big damage and an AoE heal. There's also Wanderer's Volley. This GCD is a directional gap closer that also does an attack and has 3 charges. It takes 30 seconds to accrue a charge. This is a really cool mobility skill that doubles up as damage and makes Bard feel very snappy and responsive, and improves its ability to get round in style more than ever before. Using a Wanderer's Volley gives you Bardic Inspiration up to 4 stacks. I actually think this is supposed to be up to 3 stacks, because when they swapped to Bard they just kind of started with a stack. Anyway, these provide Pitch Perfect when you build Bardic Inspiration stacks, and by the looks of things, Pitch Perfect is a simple OGCD damage attack. So one thing you'll notice here is that there aren't any raid buffs. That's because raid buffs have been removed across the board. Square Enix makes a note of this, calling them synergy actions. These have been removed from the game in the 8.0 battle system update for both Reborn and Evolved modes of jobs. I guess the 2-minute meta at last is about to breathe its final breath. I actually really don't mind this. Raid buffs have been in a weird spot for a long while. They provide avenues for optimization, but to the average player do not add anything aside from a thoughtless button press. And this more individualistic approach to battle rotations has seemingly opened the doors for Square Enix to once again tread in the direction of allowing all jobs to provide some form of unique utility. They will also be adjusting ability acquisition levels for Evolved mode jobs. By level 50, these jobs will be baseline feature complete when it comes to their actions themselves. From that point onwards, they will receive combo actions, OGCDs, and branching paths rather than new buttons entirely. Evolved mode is also looking to shake up the tank meta by splitting the now 5 tank jobs into 2 fixed roles, main tanks and off tanks, which have different unique strengths. From 8.0 onwards, Paladin and the new tank will be defined as main tanks. They are skilled at directly taking damage and will be provided the ability to counter enemy attacks. We saw an example of that with the Paladin showcase. Warrior, Dark Knight, and Gunbreaker will be off tanks. These have the ability to use actions that lower enemy damage and are skilled at reducing the damage that allies take. In theory, I can get behind this, though I'd really like to see what actually ends up amounting to in reality, especially when it comes to off tanks. I need to see what form they take. It could be really cool if jobs are unique to play, they have unique strengths, and most importantly, they keep building on this system with additions without cutting it back any further. If that is true, I could see the vision. Though, White Mage especially leaves me a bit concerned for the future of healers. I'm very much hoping that White Mage is simply quote-unquote the easy healer, and that the other 3 are going to have a little bit more meat. I find it very, very hard to assess this design without seeing the game that they're designing it for. FF14 is fundamentally going to be a very different MMORPG in 8.0 than it has existed at any point before. It's almost certainly the most significant combat shift that has taken place since after A Realm Reborn released. Not getting to see multiple jobs within a role makes it difficult to really analyze because there is no ability to compare. But what I can say is that I'm excited. Whether it's easier, harder, more or less interesting, all of those things are as of yet a bit unknown. But one thing is for sure, it's new. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I'd take that over the old status quo any day.